Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty radical, the idea that for centuries, our whole system of ethics might have been missing, well, about half the story. Okay, so let's jump right in with a question that honestly kind of shakes the very foundation of Western philosophy. For literally centuries, we've built our ideas of what's good on a certain set of ideals. But what if those ideals only tell one side of the story? What if they only represent one very specific kind of human experience? So, on one hand, you have traditional ethics. It's all about independence, strict rules, being impartial, things our culture has often labeled as masculine. And because that was seen as the default, this other perspective, one focused on community, relationships, and the messy details of real life, often labeled feminine, was kind of pushed aside. It was seen as, well, less serious, less rational. But then, in the 1980s, this long-standing imbalance got a major shakeup. A groundbreaking psychologist came along and basically changed the entire conversation. So her name was Carol Gilligan, and she was working with her mentor, Lawrence Kohlberg. Now, his theory on the stages of moral development, it was the gold standard at the time. But Gilligan started noticing something weird, a pattern. In study after study, boys were consistently ranked as being more morally mature than girls. And she thought, that can't be right. And here's her genius move. She realized the problem wasn't with the girls. It was with the test. She argued that they weren't less developed morally. They were simply operating from a completely different ethical framework, one this system wasn't even built to recognize. They were, as she put it, speaking in a different voice. And this quote right here, it absolutely nails her point. What she's saying is, if you get too hung up on applying these big general rules to every single situation, you can actually become blind to what's really going on. You stop seeing the person and their specific needs. It creates indifference. So this really breaks down into two totally different ways of thinking about morality, almost like two different moral languages. Check out the difference in the core question. The ethic of justice asks, what is just? It's about rules and fairness. But the ethic of care asks something else entirely. How should I respond? It shifts the focus from abstract principles to the immediate needs of the people involved. And you can see that difference in the focus, too. For the justice perspective, it's all about rights, rules, universal principles, treating everyone the same. The care perspective, that's about relationships, responsibilities, and looking at the specific context. It's not about equality so much as equity. Gilligan herself put it perfectly. The morality of rights, that's about equality, treating everyone the same. But the ethic of responsibility, that's about equity. It's about recognizing that people have different needs and responding to those specific needs. Okay, so what does this ethic of care actually look like in practice? What does it really mean to care in an ethical sense? Well, at its heart, it's the idea that our moral lives aren't some abstract thought experiment. Nope. They happen right here, in the messy, complicated, beautiful web of our relationships. It says that our connections to other people are the absolute center of our moral world. And it's not just some fuzzy feeling either. Ethicist Joan Tronto broke it down into 4 concrete steps. First, you have to be attentive. You actually have to notice that someone needs help. Then you take responsibility. You decide, okay, I'm going to do something. Third, competence. You have to have the skill to actually provide good care. And finally, responsiveness. You have to check in with the person you're helping to see how they're doing and make sure your care is actually, well, caring. Now, this isn't just theory. This framework gives us a really powerful way to look at real-world problems, especially the kinds of injustices that more traditional models might just completely miss. So remember that first step, attentiveness, the need to listen and pay attention? Well, what happens when certain people just aren't listened to? When their word is automatically doubted because of who they are? There's a name for that. It's called testimonial injustice. And this has devastating real-world consequences. A powerful, tragic example is what happened with vaginal mesh implants. For years, thousands of women reported being in absolute agony, and they were systematically told by doctors that it was all in their heads or that they were just being emotional. Their testimony, their lived experience of pain, was just dismissed. It's a massive failure of care, of simple attentiveness from a system that was supposed to help. An ethic of care also means we have to look at the whole person, right? Not just one part of their identity. This is where the idea of intersectionality is so important. It reminds us that someone's vulnerability isn't just about their gender. It's about how their gender might overlap with their race, their class, their ability, all these different layers. To truly care, you have to be attentive to that whole picture. So, does all this mean we have to throw out the idea of justice and just focus on care? Is it an either-or thing? Well, not at all. The goal isn't to just flip the script and say care is better than justice. In fact, many thinkers who built on Gilligan's work, like Nell Noddings, said, no way, it's not a competition. The real goal is to bring these two ideas together, to integrate justice and care to create a much more complete, much more human moral framework. And that's what this middle way is all about. You don't get rid of principles of justice, you keep them, but you combine them with the realities of human connection, the context, the relationships, the specific responsibilities you have. The aim is to find a solution that isn't just fair on paper, but is actually appropriate and helpful for the real people in the real situation. So at the end of the day, it's all about finding that balance, isn't it? Balancing our big, important principles with the actual living, breathing people those principles are supposed to serve. And this isn't just some dusty old philosophical debate, it's a challenge we are facing right now, every single day. And that's really the big question I want to leave you with. Think about it. We're building AI that makes life and death decisions. We're facing these massive global crises. How do we build systems that don't just follow the rules, but are actually responsive to human needs? Systems that aren't just impartial, but are built on a real foundation of compassionate care? That different voice that Gilligan heard all those years ago, well, it's not just a critique anymore. It might just be the most important guide we have for the future.